Hey guys, how y'all doing? We're here for another week of Bible study. Yay! We're looking at Noah pleases God in Genesis 6 9 through 12. But before I get into that, I was doing some Bible studying, Bible reading, and while I was doing that, I usually put on music, but this last time I was listening to a bunch of podcasts, and I ran across Jace Robertson's podcast, and I don't know if he was at a conference or whatever. But he kind of put the Bible in this kind of perspective. So, the Bible in a nutshell, you have the Old Testament, which is Genesis through Malachi, and that is Jesus coming. And then you have the New Testament, which he kind of broke down into two different parts. One, first part would be Matthew through John, which is the story of Jesus, and that's Jesus is here. And then the second part of uh, the New Testament would be Acts through Revelation, whereas Jesus is coming. And then all together, it's basically a love letter from God to His creation, which would be us. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And another thing that he was talking about, and this was on their Unashamed podcast. They were talking about the beginning in Genesis, and which is something kind of like what we're doing. And so they were talking about how science and how people are trying to disprove the Bible through science. But in Genesis 1:1, you have basically the five properties of the universe. So the five properties of the universe would be time, force, energy, space, and matter. So, and then in Genesis 1:1, you have in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So, time would be in the beginning, force would be God, energy would be created, space is heavens, and then matter is earth. So, just in that first sentence of the Bible, you have your five properties of the universe. So, anyways, I thought that was kind of interesting to share with you guys. Another thing I ran across, I was listening to the radio. I usually listen to KSBJ, and and it was a couple of months ago when I heard this little story, I don't know why I didn't think to print it off a long time ago, but last week I was like, you know what? Since this section of the Bible is going to be kind of short, I want to add this little story in. And it's a story called A Story of the Three Trees. Once upon a mountaintop, three little trees stood and dreamed of what they wanted to become when they grew up. The first little tree looked up at the stars and said, I want to hold treasure. I want to be covered with gold and filled with precious stones. I'll be the most beautiful treasure chest in the world." The second little tree looked out at the small stream trickling by on its way to the ocean. "I want to be traveling mighty waters and carrying powerful kings. I'll be the strongest ship in the world." The third little tree looked down into the valley below, where busy men and women worked in the busy town. "I don't want to leave the mountaintop at all. I want to grow so tall that when people stop to look at me, they'll raise their eyes to heaven and think of God. I will be the tallest tree in the world." Years passed, the rain came, the sun shone, and the little trees grew tall. One day, three woodcutters climbed the mountain. One woodcutter looked at the first tree and said, "This tree is beautiful. It is perfect for me." With a swoop of his shiny axe, the first tree fell. "Now I shall be made into a beautiful chest. I shall hold wonderful treasure," the first tree said. The second woodcutter looked at the second tree and said, This tree is strong. It is perfect for me." With a sweep of his shiny axe, the second tree fell. "Now I shall sail mighty waters," thought the second tree. "I shall be a strong ship for mighty kings." The third tree felt her heart sink. When the last woodcutter looked at her, she stood straight and tall and pointed bravely to heaven. But the woodcutter never looked up. "Any kind of tree will do for me. he muttered. With a sweep of his shiny axe, the third tree fell. The first tree rejoiced when the woodcutter brought her to a carpenter's shop, but the carpenter fashioned the tree into a feed box for animals. The once beautiful tree was not covered with gold nor with treasure. She was coated with sawdust and filled with hay for hungry farm animals. The second tree smiled when the woodcutter took her to the shipyard. But no mighty sailing ship was made that day. Instead, the once strong tree was hammered and sawed into a simple fishing boat. She was too small, too weak to sail on an ocean, or even a river. Instead, she was taken to a little lake. The third tree was confused when the woodcutter cut her into strong beams and left her in the lumber yard. What happened? The small, the once tall tree wondered. All I ever wanted was to stay on the mountaintop and point to God. Many, many days and nights passed. The three trees nearly forgot their dreams. But one night, golden star poured over the first tree as a young woman placed her newborn baby in the feed box. I wish I could make a cradle for him, her husband whispered. The mother squeezed his hand and smiled at the starlight shone as the starlight shone on the smooth and the sturdy wood. This manger is beautiful, she said. And suddenly the first tree knew he was holding the greatest treasure in the world. One evening, a tired traveler and his friends crowded into the old fishing boat. The traveler fell asleep on the second tree, quietly sailed out into the lake. Soon a thundering and thrashing storm arose. The little tree shuddered. She knew she did not have the strength to carry so many passengers safely through the wind and the rain. The tired man awakened. He stood up, stretched out his hand, and said, "Peace." The storm stopped, and as quickly as it had begun. And suddenly the second tree knew he was carrying the King of Heaven and earth. On Friday morning, the third tree was startled when her beams were yanked from the forgotten woodpile. She flinched as she was carried through an angry, jeering crowd. She shuddered when soldiers nailed a man's hands to her. She felt ugly and harsh and cruel. But on Sunday morning, when the sun rose and the earth trembled with joy beneath her, the third tree knew that God's love had changed everything. It had made the third tree strong, and every time people thought of the third tree, they would think of God. That was better than being the tallest tree in the world. The next time you feel down because you didn't get what you want, sit tight and be happy because God is thinking of something better to give you. Source unknown. I just think that is a beautiful story, and sometimes it makes me tear up. Sorry. Just thinking of all the many things that we try to do for ourselves instead of waiting for that perfect gift that God gives us. Like, for me, for many years, I've done things myself and strived to do things myself. But then I realized once I started getting to know God more and getting into His Word more, the more I felt that He wanted me to do what I'm doing now, which is writing and doing these YouTube videos. It doesn't matter that I'm struggling right now. What matters is I'm doing what God has prepared me to do. And once you start taking that walk with Him, you will start seeing the path that He's laying out for you. Like my sister, she works hard to doing what she does, but yet he's slowly laying that path down for her to do what she likes doing, and what she was meant to do, which is videoing and stuff like that, and supporting her friends and family that are doing the stuff that I'm doing through her work. So just never fail, or don't get discouraged just because your path, like the little trees, just because the path that you had set out for yourself is not working out. Because God has always got something bigger and better for you. Going into our little Bible study, again, this week's going to be kind of small. The genealogy of Noah is not very long, but It's I think all parts of the Bible are important, and this is kind of a little important little tidbit. So I'm gonna read Genesis 9 through 12 again, just to kind of refresh our memories, and then I'm gonna go over this little section of notes I got. And with that, let me find my place here. Noah pleases God. This is the genealogy of Noah. Noah was a just man, perfect in his generations. Noah walked with God, and Noah begot three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. So God looked upon the earth, and indeed it was corrupt, for all the flesh had corrupt their way on the earth. So Genesis 6, 9 through 10, you have the genealogy of Noah. And so Noah was 500 years old when he had Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Can you imagine being 500 years old having children? Because I can't. But that was what God had planned for him. Genealogy of Noah is the third of 11 Toldos genealogy sections in Genesis. The word perfect, Noah's loyalty to God was undivided in that he possessed integrity. While Noah was not without sin, he was just. And this is another thing. So, like in the New Testament, you see Jesus collecting up tax collectors, fishermen, and all these people who are the low of the low, and he's having dinner and stuff with people that the Pharisees would deem unclean or sinful. In the Old Testament, you're seeing this basically the same thing. You're seeing God taking people we would think of unworthy people and bringing out goodness uh, through them. Like with Noah, he's gonna basically start a whole new. He's gonna start the earth again, basically, with Noah and his three sons. Um, Noah walked with God. During this time, Noah had three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. He was 500 years old. You can see that. So in Genesis 6, 11 through 12, corrupt is used three times. The earth also was corrupt, so God looked upon the earth and indeed was corrupt, and for all flesh had corrupt their way on the earth. Three different forms of the verb corrupt are used to describe what humanity had done to itself on earth. Hebrew word for corrupt means bring to ruin or to destroy. Basically, men and women were doing whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted, and not considering other people. Not in a way, you can kind of see it in today's world where it's all about me, 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 and not about you know everybody. We're not taking care of each other like we used to. It's all about what I can do for myself instead of what can I do for my neighbor. Anyways, so basically that's all I had for this week. We will pick up again at Genesis 6, 13 through 22, which was Ark Prepared. And I like this part of it because of the blueprints of the ark. The fact that Noah was not a shipbuilder, and he was just a common man, probably a farmer of some sort, or had a farmer or rancher of some sort, and God has him build this massive boat. So it's just amazing, and it's really really interesting because I'm the history nerd and I liked all that kind of stuff. But anyways, don't forget y'all's copies of Someone to Believe In. You can get it at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, or iTunes. It comes in hardback, paperback, and ebook. And I think I've seen it. I know I've seen it on ChristianBooks.com, and there's a couple other places you can probably find it. But for the three main ones is Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and iTunes. That's where I tend to point people because that's where you can get all three copies. if depending on how you like to read and whatnot. So until then, y'all have a blessed day, blessed week, and thank you.